Board is back in session. It's 6 o'clock. Thanks for being here tonight, joining us. Item number 3, additions, corrections, and/or deletions to the agenda.
I have nothing, Mr. Wood.
Nothing at all. Okay, great. Well, item 3B, let's recommend the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
All right, Amy, second.
Second.
All right, Jonathan. All right, roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Story?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Default?
Yes.
All right, motion approved. All right, item 4, recognitions and awards.
That's part of the agenda,
Yes,
right?
sir.
The Beth Webster Leading Lion Award tonight is going to be presented by Joe Roach, Locust Corner Elementary Principal. And Mr. Roach, could you please come forward and tell us who's here tonight to get recognized?
Good evening, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I'm able to nominate 4 wonderful Locust Corner 5th grade students for this month's Beth Webster Leading Lion Award. They are, and why don't you guys wave when I say your name?
All right,
Lily Abbott, Addison Dryden, Colton Lucas, and Piper Lucas. These 4 students took the initiative to start a kindness club at Locust Corner Elementary last school year when they were in 4th grade. And they began doing this on their own and during any available time they had at school. Early last year, they began making cards and handing out kindness cards, making posters, notes of encouragement to students and staff. They also made as I said, kindness posters to remind students to be kind and hung them all around the school. They have also met with me several times, right, to discuss different opportunities and ways that they can have competitions among the students at our school to help promote kindness. These 4 students will be helping to our staff with a new committee that we've just created this year, a kindness committee. And Michelle Tyler, who is back there, wait, Michelle, has volunteered very graciously to be their staff representative, leading them in that effort. And they also, I know, are meeting regularly after school now, so that's awesome. The initiative these students have taken over the past year to not only start this kindness club, but to grow it into something really special shows great leadership. They definitely fit our motto of Lions Today, Leaders Tomorrow. So again, I want to congratulate Piper, Colton, Addison, and Lily for a job very well done, and to thank them for the positive impact that they have had on making Locust Corner a better place.
Goodness, wow. Ladies, thank you so much for making a difference at your school. I appreciate and respect that leadership so much. So important. Mr. Roach and ladies, would you please join us up by the banners? Let me take a picture of you all. I'm sorry. The podium was blocking me. Yeah, you are in the front, Mr. Roach. Lots of pictures. Everybody sit? Wow. Wow, yeah, we're on a lot of cameras. Yeah, right.
Good job. He wouldn't be so nice. He needs more kindness.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
You're
Great
more than
job.
welcome to stay, or you can go celebrate if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's nice. That's good stuff.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. You did a wonderful job.
right, moving on. Item number 5, public participation. Anyone like to speak tonight and address the board? All right, sir. So go ahead and,
We do have a 3-minute limit. Would you like
yeah,
to
3-minute
confirm that?
limit, and then introduce yourself, please, and your address, if you don't mind.
Okay, my name is Ron Wilson. I live over on Schneider Estates Drive near Lindale. And I was just made aware of your being brought to your attention about arming the teachers. And I have some experience with that. It's a little close to home for me, but I don't want to be critical of you guys, and I appreciate what you're all doing. It's an important job. But I just want to bring another perspective for you to consider regarding the subject of allowing teachers to be armed for self-defense. And I was a bit amazed at how easily the subject of arming these teachers was kicked up the road to Columbus. And I know you guys have rules and things you have to follow. But I just would like you to consider to do all that you can as a school board to protect these kids, protect the teachers. In the wake of all the teachers and young students who have been brutally murdered in their own schools, how can we deny them the right to self-defense? And what is the reasoning behind denying them an equalizer to potentially take out these murderers before they take out our children? In Santee, where I lived before I came here, made national news. Randy Gordon was a neighbor of mine, lived right across the street. Played with my son. They were the same age. They went to events together. They worked together. He was a very nice kid. He was talking with the Marine Corps. He was going to join them once he was through with high school. But he never graduated from high school. He was shot and killed by a classmate who asked his friends, not Randy's friends, but the classmates' friends, if they wanted to go shoot up the school. The kid was just messed up. He now gets free room and board from the state of California. No one was able to stop the kid, and 2 boys are dead as a result. One of the other boy, he was an honor student. He was gonna do well. His mom had homeschooled him, and they decided to put him into public school. And I'm sure they regret that decision now. But gun-free zones is not the answer. It's a law that is not effective. The shooter is already planning to break a bigger law made by God and man, that you can't murder another human. Besides that, the shooter wants to go to a place where there are no guns, because no one will be shooting back at them. How many lives could have been saved if the brave teachers had the tools to defend themselves and stop the shooters in the first place? Police are not reliable because it takes time for them to get to the location, to receive the information about what's happening, and then they are more worried about the legal liability and their own safety than they are about the lives of the children. And I just referenced Uvalde, Texas, where it took 90 minutes to go inside the building. The teacher, who is right there in the environment, hears the gunshots, sees the blood and victims on the floor, is facing the shooter. The teacher already knows what to do. In conclusion, I ask you to please put yourself in the shoes of the teachers and students in an unfortunate shooting situation with an active shooter in the next room. Please don't leave our students and faculty helpless and defenseless. Thanks for hearing.
Thank you. Appreciate address the board tonight? All right, moving on. Item number 6, please. Committee reports. Need a finance committee meeting. Someone represent.
All right, Finance Committee meeting, we talked about the 5-year forecast, which I'm not going to steal Mr. Pritchard's thunder there and let him talk about that, but that's primarily what the discussion was about, and you'll understand why here in a little bit. So,
All right, good. All right, Grand Career Center.
Okay, our last meeting was on October the 20th. We had 3 national competitors that came to the meeting and presented what they presented at their national competitions, talked about the national competitions and how much they learned from going to those competitions. It was really interesting to see them speak, and you just see them grow. And then they had the student ambassadors also. They do recruitment at all of our associate schools, and they had their display set up down in the cafeteria area and took us all down there and kind of let us go through the same thing that the associate school kids would go through when they go to their building. So it was pretty interesting. We did some board policy updates through Neolia, and then on the 24th did a grant give back, which was 55 service projects that were completed amongst the associate schools. I was down here in New Richmond with some of the students and stuff. I don't know the exact number that was down there, but we painted some curbs and painted fire hydrants, and they did a lot of good things. And if you go to Bethel up towards Grant on 125 area, that wall, the concrete wall, they did a real nice paint job on that, recognizing all of our armed forces. So really neat to see. And our next meeting is next Monday, the 28th. So that's it.
Great, thanks, Tim. And lastly, Athletic Council.
Yes, we met on November 16th, and I want to spend a little time talking about this just because one of the comments at the meeting was the public may not know that this superintendent's committee even exists. But the purpose of the committee is to collaborate on issues surrounding athletics, to support our athletes, to support our coaches and staff, and ultimately to head off issues before they become unmanageable. And so we talked about the potential of officially establishing the Athletic Council as a subcommittee of the board. It does have board representation on there already. We talked about establishing some administrative guidelines for considering new sports because there's some need for additional clarity. It doesn't exist in writing anywhere how that happens, and no one person wants to be the person who makes that call. We spent some time talking about potential conflicts with youth sports and district sports, and just reiterating to the public that obviously the district sports are the priority in terms of space and field time. And then we talked about several facility and equipment need updates. Most of those are coming back after additional research, so we won't mention any of those tonight. But something to keep an eye on, there is an effort by the council to collect information about cost per student per sport, and that's looking at facility costs, transportation costs, uniform costs, and making sure that we're also examining that for Title IX equity and spending. Important to consider all of those things. And the last thing, two more items. It was a long meeting. It was a productive meeting.
It was.
We are working, actually, the assistant principal cause at the high school is taken on the task of developing a coach's handbook, which some of us were surprised to find it doesn't exist. So, in giving guidance and counsel to all the coaches, he's working on standardizing that a bit. And last but not least, a plea to the public that we don't allow dogs in the stadium. This becomes more complicated at running events on campus. We all are dog people, I think, up here. We love dogs, but we want you to keep your dogs at home. It becomes a safety issue, and it's very, very hard to police, especially for cross-country events where there is no stadium per se. We want you to come and enjoy, but please leave your furry children at home.
Awesome.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you all. All right, item 7, superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Just a couple of items. It's that time of year where we need to remind everyone, students, staff, and community, the processes for canceling, closing school in the event of bad weather. Tonight was a good test run for us. First, middle, and last, it's safety first. We've got to be able to get our kids here safely. This is not a walkable district, so either they're in a car or they're on a bus. And not just that, it's also, and people forget, it's our parking lots and sidewalks. Whereas the roads may look clear, we have our crew still trying to get their parking lots cleared, the sidewalks cleared, and that takes manpower, that takes time. And of course, the timing of the storm is also critically important. We have a very long district. To get from Locust Corner to Monroe in good weather takes 20, 25 minutes in good weather. So by the time I do this loop that I do, the road conditions have changed from where I just was. So when parents look out their windows, they may see clear streets, clear everything, and we're canceling school. Well, because other parts of our district doesn't have the same capabilities to keep the roads clear. We understand, and I've hit this hard with the administrative team here, closing school is a big deal. It's a big deal for our parents. It disrupts their lives, so we don't take it lightly if we can get them here safely. As you know, and I've come to know and appreciate, the roads here don't have much forgiveness in terms of they're steep, they're winding, and there's not much shoulder, so you don't have a lot of leeway to give there. If I know a storm is coming, a winter storm is coming the day before, where we can prepare, where students can take home their Chromebooks and teachers can say, okay, we need to get ready for this. We will use a remote day so we don't lose a day of instruction. If it happens after that, into the evening or the next morning, it'll be a calamity day because kids won't have their Chromebooks, they won't have been prepared, and I understand that. And right then, parents are trying to get daycare for their kids. So if we know the day before, during the school day, we'll try to utilize a remote day. If it goes beyond that or into the morning, it's going to be a calamity day. We have to make a call 5:15, because our buses get rolling. So we don't know what the roads are going to look like in 2 hours at 7:30 when the secondary begins, and an hour later. But we do it based on the best information that we have, knowing that no matter what we decide, it's going to be a wrong decision, right? If you keep schools open, I'm a dummy. If I close schools, I'm a dummy. Okay, all right, got it. Okay, but we're doing the very best we can, because then once that decision is made, a lot of things happen quickly to get the information out to our people, so parents and everybody can begin to plan. So it's a very involved process. I don't wish this on anybody. I know that's part of the job we take on, but I want to make sure that our community understands that when we do call school, it's a very intentional and thoughtful decision that's been made. So be happy to entertain any questions, or for those watching us online, they can always email me questions about what to do if. We also, we have some guidelines for our athletic programs that when we cancel school, so we've shared that with the coaches, so everybody should be on the same page with that. So.
If you could, just talk a little bit about illness, like if there's a big illness outbreak at a school, how that decision is made, or who makes that decision? Yeah,
so it would be me. It comes under policy. It's by the superintendent, and we look at the further. I hear two things. It's your staff. If we have more staff, I know there was a school system in our areas that I think called today and tomorrow because of illness. And we've done that before with the COVID. So it really, can we staff the building? The second number is, and there's not really a set percentage, but when it gets, and I hesitate to put something out in public because then, well, hey, we hit 8%, we should be canceling school. There's an art and there's a science to it. So you look at, do you have staff? Are we going to be able to have good instruction? Are we hurting ourselves long term by having kids show up that are make more people sick? So luckily we've not had to face that too much, but.
Is there a set number of calamity versus remote days?
Yeah. So the state has changed. The state has changed, and many school systems, ourselves included, throughout Ohio, has not made that shift yet from days to hours. So to answer your question is, we have a lot of extra hours that we do. And it's good, we need to. What we do here is important, and kids need to be in school. It's good. This model works. In most school systems, it does. So we've got some hours built in. If we have to call school, you get 3 blizzard bag days. You get 3, that's still by policy that you've got. So I've always got to think long term.
Mhm.
I always think long game. Nobody wants to be going to school in May and June because we've burned too many hours to make up, right? So it goes back, there's some art and there's some science to it. Can we do a remote day and save those hours? Is it time that we need to use some hours? So 3 days, blizzard back days. Does that help?
Mhm. And I just think with the change to remote, I think people are confused with blizzard bag versus
Yeah.
calamity.
Yeah, so we can still capture that as instructional hours. It's just that when we call a calamity day,
That's it.
that's it. There's no credit for any education that day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks. And because it looks to be like we're going to have a challenging winter. It started early.
So hold those days.
It is right. I'm going to try to hold those days. Right. Let's get to April. Right. It's just amazing, and I know we need to move on, but just the least little bit of sleet or ice can paralyze.
Yep.
And I get it. It happens fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks. Appreciate that, and we'll continue to monitor. Just one more thing. We've had a couple of mental health issues with some students here recently, and as superintendent and my administrative team, we want to make sure we're in our board that we're doing all we can to make sure we support our kids that we can possibly do. So we had a mental health meeting a few weeks ago. I thought it was great. Mr. Zimmerman was there as board representation, maybe 24, 25 people. All buildings were represented, principals, mental health therapists, guidance counselors. And what we did is we brainstormed all the things we have in place right now. And it's considerable. It really, really is. It's considerable. But then we also brainstormed what are some areas that we can continue to improve in. What are some things maybe we can bring to the district, some experiences that maybe people have had with other past districts. And we came up with 3-4 action items where we're going to meet again in a couple of weeks, and people are going to come with information about those action items and to see if there's something we want to consider to bring to our district. So nothing to do, just more of an awareness.
No, it was a great meeting, a lot of participation. I mean, the knowledge in the room and the passion about the subject was evident, and we have looked for a lot of great things to come out of that committee.
Yeah, we look at this committee becoming something ongoing for really.
At least for a while.
Okay.
It's going to need to.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And it's the mental health of the students and
And
staff and everything around, and even the community. And that's what it's really focused on, not just the students.
It's been a challenging couple of years.
Yeah.
It has been.
Since we're going to talk finance in a little bit, are any of the things that you brainstormed on that list contingent upon temporary funding through COVID or CARES, that it's going to go away unless we support it beyond that? Maybe that's an unfair ask, but if you could bring that back at the next meeting, it would be nice to share that with the public. Like, we've been able to do some of these things because of short-term infusion of dollars.
Yes.
From the feds or from the state.
Yes. Yeah. So we actually at our last administrative team meeting, we began that conversation. We created a list of the grant-funded positions that we have that are either through title monies or through ESSER monies, and we started those conversations when those sunset. What's that going to look like?
Right.
So I think it's a very, very good point, fair point.
It's not going to be anytime soon that the need goes away.
No doubt.
Not soon. Right. The needs of it is going to be there. Yeah. Right. Correct. Thank you.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Yep. Thank you.
Item number 8, human resource items, please.
So the consent items, it's a relatively small agenda. Pardon me. So at resignations, just two I want to call out. Mr. Harris, longtime social studies teacher at the high school, does a great job, has directed our plays. He's going to go full-time grandpa, as I understand. So at least that's what his wife's telling him. So that's good. So, but we wish him well. He's a good man. And just we're really going to miss Miss Sheila Villens, our director of communications. She has elevated this position. She had a professional opportunity. She absolutely could not pass it up. And she loves New Richmond, and New Richmond has embraced her, and she's embraced New Richmond. But it's good for her, it's good for her family, and we wish her nothing but the absolute best, and maybe our paths will cross again sometime. So we're in the process of interviewing for that position, and hopefully we'll be able to have a recommendation here soon, for sure by the next board meeting. Exempt employees, bringing another nurse on to help take care of our children. Classified employee, another parapro, increased hours of work, and that's only we had a lady, a secretary, move from the middle school to the high school. And so then we had a parapro move in the middle school from the parapro ranks to the secretary's position. So that's what that increase of hours. It's an increase of a half-hour day. It's not a new head count, it's just replacing what went to the high school. Just a few fall and winter supplementals, and then we have a request for an unpaid leave by one of our staff members. That is the consent items of human resources.
Okay, great. So I recommend the Board of Education approve items 8A through 8H. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
All right, Jonathan, second.
I'll second.
All right, Tim, any discussion on these items at all? No? All right, roll call, please.
All right, Mrs. Story,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Default,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes. All right, item 9, Treasurer's Report and action items.
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Wood. Item A is approval of the Personnel Committee meeting minutes from October. B is the October special meeting minutes. And C is the regular meeting minutes approval. Item D is approval of financial reports. Thank you, Mr. Gunn. On our part, pretty well. We're a little low on revenue. I keep wanting to get our public utility payment in. I'd like to see that soon. We haven't received that yet from the county auditor's office. Everything else still looks pretty square. We'll get that sooner or later. It's just be nice to have it now. It should be a big payment. Item E is acceptance of donations. We're always appreciative of donations that come into the district. We have 2 this month. Item F is confirming purchase orders. There are 2 confirming purchase orders. This just means that we were invoiced for a product or service before we had a purchase order on file. And it's something the Board of Education has approved if it's over $3,000. Item G is approval of the amended appropriations. These have changed since the last board approval. If you could, I'm sorry, Mr. Burke, if you could click on that. I
Absolutely.
apologize, I should have asked you to do that
Absolutely.
earlier. The only changes are to the grants, just to make sure that we're capturing all the, utilizing all the grant funding that we can. They come in a little late in the fall, I have to make adjustments, and we have carryover money too. So the board has to appropriate those monies to be spent, so we can spend them all this year, which is a good thing, we want to spend all this grant. And Mr. Default, thank you for a reminder, the regular board minutes were updated today.
Awesome.
For the change, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for treasurer.
Wonderful. Chairman, Board of Education approve items 9A through 9G. Can I get a motion, please? All
Also move.
right, Tim, second.
I can second.
All right, Amy, any discussion? No? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Default?
Yes.
Mrs. Story?
Yes.
All right, motion carried. All right, item 10, approval of 5-year forecast.
Thank you very much. Stand up to the podium for this one. So twice a year, in November and May, we are required to submit a financial forecast, a 5-year financial forecast to the Ohio Department of Education. And not a lot of changes since we did this in May, but I'd certainly like to go over what we're looking at. This fiscal year 2023 is a pretty good, strong year for New Richmond. Last year we had a nice carryover. We were in the positive. We were able to bank some of that money and put it into our cash balance and increase that. This year we're going to run about a $300,000 budget deficit, which will chew away a little bit of that cash balance. And then for 2024 we're going to have a significant amount of deficit spending that's going to occur in this district, right around $5 million. What I'd like to do is key in on the 5 areas that really make a difference, that make that jump out. We have a perfect storm here. And these 5 areas are all based upon revenue loss. I think that's really important to emphasize. So if you could, look at the forecast with me, and I want to look at item 1.02 first, the public utility personal property. We're seeing a $989,000 reduction there, almost $1 million, from 23 to 24. That's from the Zimmer closure. That's the anticipated loss of revenue just from Zimmer closing. That's a huge chunk of change, officer. There's $1 million. line item 1.035, unrestricted grants and aid. This is our state payment. We've been receiving a $1.7 million bridge payment for districts that are power plant districts that have seen depreciation in the value of those properties. I cannot forecast those in years 24 and above because the legislators at the state level will have to approve this and write it back into law. There's no guarantee that they will. There's no guarantee we'll receive that bridge payment. It's something that we're working with our elected officials on. The Board of Education, you've been doing that as well with our state representative and now our state senator to make sure to try to get that language back in there and keep some of that so we can continue to get those payments. That's another loss of $1.5 million. That was in House Bill 110 in the law last time in the biennium. Next line is 1.05, property tax allocation. That is our deregulation payments that get decreased. That started in 2009. They get decreased about $300,000 a year. That will be phased out in 2035. So we see a decrease of that every year, $322,984 this year. Next line item is 3.01. This is an expenditure line item. It's personal services. This is salaries. $1.287 million difference. Increase in salaries. Reason being is because we're not going to be able to offset those expenditures with ESSER funds next year. So we're going to see this big rise in what we're going to spend on salaries. We're not spending this year. So that's really a revenue loss because we're losing the ESSER funds. We're going to deplete those this year. Some of that is, of course, inflation and step increases just naturally occurring, but the majority of that is due to ESSER loss. Last item I want you to look at is 3.02, employee benefits. It's the same thing. We do supplement some of those benefits with ESSER funds this year. We're going to see a big jump. It's $529,000 for next year. A little bit of inflation's in there, but a lot of that's ESSER as well. When you total up those 5 line items I just gave you, I've totaled them up for you, by the way. It's $4.7 million. So if you have 4.7 to the 300,000 we have this year, that's how you get the $5 million budget deficit for next year. All 5 revenue losses, expenditures in this district are going up very modestly. So we don't see that, we're just seeing a revenue loss. Over $14.5 million in the bank, the cash balance. If you look at the 5-year forecast and you let your eyes follow the year 2025, and you look at line item 7.02, 2025, $3.1 million. That's what we'll have left in the bank after that fiscal year ends. That fiscal year begins July 1st, 2024, ends June 30th, 2025. If I were to recommend to the Board of Education to look for a potential levy, a revenue source, it would be the fall of 2024 during that election cycle, which would be the general election. I would circle that as a potential date to look at something for a revenue source. 2024 fall general election. Because you don't want to get too much further down that road. $3.1 million at the end of 2025 is not a lot. And as you can see, if you go to 2026, you're $3.8 million in the hole, and the state will take over the district if we do that. No doubt. We're not allowed to run a deficit without having a cash balance, and we'll deplete our cash balance by then. That's the 5 things I wanted to focus on. Those are the big changes, really, that we're seeing from fiscal year 23, where we're at, to fiscal year 24 next year. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, 2 questions.
Sure, go right
So,
ahead.
unrestricted grants and aid. What's your gut tell you about that legislation? Do you think that they'll do something there, or what's your gut tell you?
I don't know, and I can't pin anybody down on that. They're too smart to let me do that. Right? I did confirm this year with somebody in the higher up at ODE about the payment for this year, and got that confirmed. So they give it to us in the very last payment of our fiscal year.
Yeah.
So it makes me nervous to even forecast the current fiscal year. But his name's Aaron Roush, and he heads up the finance division up there at ODE. But next year, you wait till the legislators and the lawmakers get together and go over all this, and hopefully they'll inject that language back in, or at least keep it there. But there's just no assurances they will.
So the community needs to be reaching out to the legislators,
Absolutely.
encouraging them.
Yeah, because We certainly do need that bridge payment.
So the timing is good. So at our December board meeting, Representative Byrd will be here to present an award to one of our middle school teachers. I'm going to give him a chance just to update the board on current legislative initiatives. But I think it'd be a worthy question to ask of him is what is the progress of this getting written back into the legislation? I think it's also worth noting, and most people don't know this. I only know because I happen to read a lot of newspapers. I read one out of Columbus just a couple of weeks ago. The state of Ohio right now has in excess of $10 billion of COVID relief funds. So we, the taxpayers, have sent our money to Washington, D.C., who sent it to Ohio, and they're sitting on our money $10 billion. That I shared the article with you, there are no tangible plans on how they're going to spend it. I think it'll get frittered away. And we'll be a year or so down the road, and where did the $10 billion go? So I think that's also a fair question.
Yeah.
We're not asking for just some of it. We squeeze every penny we have.
Well, it's not fair to go to the taxpayers and ask for a levy when they've got all the money sitting on it.
The rainy day fund is flush.
Right.
By law, they can't fund the rainy day fund. It's capped. They can't put any more money in there.
Right.
No more. And they have an extra $10 billion. It boggles the mind.
Mr. DeFault, that's a great point. As we stand right here and as we look at the numbers we have in front of us and the information we have, that's why I set that recommendation date of fall of 24. But hopefully we can get things to change before.
Now, my second question is a little unfair, but I just, I think it's worthwhile just asking. So, given our last levy we put on, with things the way they are, let's assume no changes, no ads, nothing. What's your gut tell you on what would the community have to think about as far as a possible levy? What that size would have to be?
I don't know. One mill got us around $468,000 last time. It's probably more now. I don't have the exact
Understood.
number.
Sure.
I'm probably guessing around $500,000 for a mill. So if you're looking, it just depends on
Right.
what we're looking at as far as reductions and combination with
Sure.
what we're going to do for revenue.
Okay.
And you brought this, or we talked about this in the finance committee, but
Sure.
can you talk to the public a little bit about, they're seeing new housing go up in New Richmond. Maybe some people are hoping that will solve the problem. Can you speak to why that won't solve the problem?
New construction doesn't bring a whole lot of revenue to school districts, and there's also a House bill that's been in place since the 70s. It's a law that caps the amount of money you can collect on a levy, regardless of the millage. So what happens when you pass a levy, at the time it passes, that's the maximum amount of money you can collect on that levy per year ever. It always adjusts down. So it doesn't ever increase due to inflation, and it's a law that caps that at whatever that amount is. New construction gives you a little bit extra, but also new construction brings new families and new children to the district, which require new services. So there's more expenditures with new construction as well. So it kind of offsets a little bit of those gains.
And you also shared a little bit about other districts that are seeing industry added to their districts, which may bring a different revenue stream.
Absolutely, industry will bring in any kind of commercial properties will, higher revenue commercial properties will bring in more revenue. Income tax levies go up with inflation, unlike property tax levies. There's ways to try to increase revenue streams with those methods as well.
The loss of industry is
That's huge.
really
These power
what's
plants
killing us.
have been just enormous. So,
Right.
if you look at it's really the story's really easy to tell. Unfortunately, it's the loss of power plant revenue in New Richmond, and then now it's the loss of ESSER funds as well. And if we get this perfect storm that's brewing, and it's going to hit us in the same fiscal year next year.
Is there anything we can do as a district over those 5 items other than appeal to our legislators?
Really, because it's-
anything in the House that we need to do as a board to, I don't know. We've trimmed a lot of costs, so I don't
Well,
know.
since there are revenue issues, it's hard to generate new revenue from just the school district doing that itself.
Yeah.
And during the finance committee, we spoke about, we run 82% of our expenditures are people,
Right.
salary and benefits, and we have even more. So we have purchase services on top of that, which is an extra 14%. There's probably a majority of that's people as well, because it's the service industry we work in that we have here.
Well, like we said last time, we can't cut our way out of this one. You can't.
I will say in the last 2 or 3 fiscal years, we've actually reduced expenditures, which is very uncharacteristic of public school districts in general. That's a very positive thing we've done and we've been able to do as a board, administrative team, and everybody together.
Yeah.
Yeah, January is when the new House and Senate get sworn in Ohio, and that's when they'll work on the next 2-year budget for the state. So
They will. They should pass
from
that
now
in
until then.
July.
It's,
That's right.
It's a great time.
That'll be the season right there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Hopefully, there's a lot of funding we can try to capture here in New Richmond. We certainly need it.
At what point, I can't recall, we went under fiscal watch with the state when we turned our 5-year forecast in, but were we a year out?
Yeah, and they might flag this one when I turn it in.
I was wondering if they put us under fiscal watch.
They have a formula they use. They look at your cash balance and they look at how much you're going to deficit spend
I was
towards that
looking at
cash
it.
balance.
Yeah.
So we'll see. When I hear something, I'll certainly share it with you.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because then that makes you start taking action and come
Mhm.
up with a plan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get something. I'd try to submit this
Yeah.
forecast.
Okay. Thanks,
Any other
Matt.
questions, is that it? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so it's recommended the Board of Education approve the 5-year forecast as presented. I need a motion.
So moved.
All right, Jonathan, second.
I'll second
All right,
it.
Tim, thank you. All right, we had some discussion. Any other discussion?
I just want more money in it.
Is there a way we can send this forecast to Bert, to his, and also to Senator? Is that worthwhile to send it to him? Just say, hey, here's our 5-year forecast.
Yeah,
What it looks like. We board approved it
So I
tonight.
can send in a summary sheet of the $5 million as well.
We can do
of
that.
the revenue
I think it'd be
loss.
wise just to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
I can do that.
Any other discussion?
Tell our story.
Yep. All right. Roll call, please.
All right. Mr. DeFault?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mrs. Story?
Yes.
Motion approved. All right. Item 11, academic report.
Good evening. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of update you on our curriculum revisions. As you know, we're revising our K-12 math curriculum this year. So just like with the ELA last year, I feel it's really imperative that we have as many teachers as we can participate on those committees so that we have lots of buy-in and lots of knowledge about what we're doing. We've had initial meetings so far, one with K-5, one with 6-8, and one with 9-12. Every 3rd through 12th grade teacher that teaches math in the district is participating on the committee. Since every K2 teacher teaches math, I have representatives from that. We have one K, one 2 teacher for each building on the committee. During our initial meetings, we set some goals. We looked at our current curriculum, our current materials. The teachers had a chance to talk with the teachers who teach the same grade level. We analyzed our resource needs. We looked at our achievement in math over the past few years. And we looked at all of that in light of the standards for mathematical practice. And the standards for mathematical practice are the processes and proficiencies in math that teachers need to be able to develop in their students. There are 8 of those practices, and these 8 things will guide what's absolutely essential in any math adoption that we do. So the first is that the program or materials need to help teachers be able to help students make sense of problems and persevere in solving problems. The second one is they have to be able to reason abstractly and quantitatively. The third one is that we want our students to be able to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So programs or materials that we use should encourage students to talk about math and to be able to ask questions of each other. They need to be able to model with mathematics, use appropriate tools, attend to precision, look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. So our teachers took a lot of time to look at those practices and what our current materials are able or not able to help them with do that. We have meetings set up for early December to discuss what we want our math classes to look like and feel like and sound like when you walk into them, what our students should be doing. And we're looking at that in relation to current mathematical instruction research. We'll investigate our current highly regarded programs, and we're going to collaborate about which ones we'd like to explore further. And then after the new year, we'll look at that narrowed list of what we consider excellent programs and have some samples and some presentations about those so that we can start looking at them in more specificity. So that's what's going on in math, and I do kind of just want to really quickly update you about our ELA adoptions. I have been particularly impressed. Every single ELA teacher in this district is 3rd through 12th grade is using the new program, and they are working really, really hard. I think that they're enjoying the programs. They're spending a lot of time. They really do appreciate the meetings that I promised you that we would have prior to each new unit. I've had many of them tell me that they feel very valued about having that time to work with each other, and as they're getting more used to the programs, their creativity and the natural art of teaching is starting to come out. It's really fun to watch. The children, which are really the most important part of it, seem to really like the new resources too. And I have just one really quick example. At 3rd grade conferences most recently, a mom was sharing with the team how much her child loved science and really was enjoying science this year. And so she started talking about what they were learning in science, and the ELA teacher said, that's not science. That's what we're learning. That's what we're learning and reading. So the mom was shocked, but just the level of knowledge and information is great. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
All right, item 12, adjournment. Can I get a motion, please? Also move on that one.
There you go.
How about a second, Jonathan? All right, any discussion to adjourn? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Dufaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Story?
Yes.
Mr. Wooten?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
All right, motion carried, and that concludes our meeting for this evening. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yes,
Thanks, everybody.